Frank was driving his Model 3 with Autopilot engaged in Sacramento, California. Autopilot was cruising at 65 miles per hour in the middle lane when a white Prius passed the Tesla on the driver's side. Behind the Prius, a Honda was approaching too fast. It swerved to the left, right into the center divider, and then shot across the freeway directly into Frank's Tesla. Frank says Autopilot and the Tesla's emergency systems kicked in immediately, swiftly preventing the car from losing control and getting him safely to the side of the road. The driver of the Honda was unlicensed and uninsured. In fact, they were already headed to jail the next day on unrelated charges. The CHP arrested him on the spot for reckless driving, reckless endangerment, and, of course, having no license or insurance. The next day, Frank's insurance provider reviewed the Teslacam footage before replacing his car in record time after the body shop informed him the vehicle was totaled with $22,000 in damage. Frank admits to owning a Honda as a second car. He's convinced that if he'd been driving his Honda that day, he wouldn't have walked away from that crash. He says Tesla Autopilot might have saved his life. We've got 20 more videos lined up in this episode showing how Autopilot reacts in crashes. First, we want to let you know we have no association with Tesla, so we can't confirm or deny any data for any of these clips. We're just telling you the stories these Tesla owners told us. Buckle up, because we're in for one heck of a ride. Nanita was on her way to a doctor's appointment during morning rush hour traffic. Autopilot was engaged, and as she approached an on-ramp, two cars were merging onto the highway. One of the drivers came off the ramp and immediately tried to merge into the fast lane, crashing straight into Nanita's Tesla. Her Tesla was pushed into the far lane, barely missing a car that had been passing her on the left. The tires and rims on the driver's side made contact with the concrete barrier. Nanita told us Autopilot took over after the impact, keeping the car steady as it got her safely to the side of the highway. The side airbags deployed, but the front airbag did not. After this, the Tesla was disabled and wouldn't allow her to drive. Emergency responders pushed the car out of the road, which damaged the rear bumper cover and hatch. Repairs cost over $21,000. At first, she was told the Tesla would be totaled, but then the insurance company changed their mind and went forward with repairing it, which took 3 months to complete. Asfar was driving his Model 3 with Autopilot engaged in Bedford, Texas. He was approaching an interchange, driving in one of 2 lanes headed north. Suddenly, the driver of the car on his right changed his mind and drove over the solid line, crashing into Asfar's Tesla. This pushed the Tesla into the southbound lanes, where he barely avoided the center divider. Asfar says Autopilot reacted quickly and handled the situation very well. Unfortunately, the other driver did not handle the situation quite so well. He just took off, making it a hit and run. To make things worse, Asfar wasn't able to make out the license plate number from the video, so he had to file a claim with his own insurance provider, who's currently processing his claim. Ricardo was driving his Model Y on a winding road in Portugal. As he came around a bend, his heart stopped, and so did his car. A little girl had torn herself from her mother's hand and run straight into the road. Ricardo says the Tesla's automatic emergency braking engaged before he'd even noticed. Tyron was sitting at a traffic signal in Duluth, Georgia. When it turned green, he began his turn. After he'd completed the turn, the sun blinded him and he couldn't see a jaywalker in the road. But his Model S did. Tyron says the Tesla slowed down and swerved to the right to avoid an accident. Here we can see the jaywalker running out of the way, hopefully grateful for Tesla's safety features. After waiting at a traffic signal, AJ proceeded once it turned green. Abruptly, his Tesla applied the brakes. A fraction of a second later, a car ran their red light and raced across the intersection in front of him. After this incident, AJ went home and gave his Tesla a well-deserved wash. Chris was returning from a winter vacation in Michigan and encountered some bad weather on his drive south. He had Autopilot set below the speed limit when he hit a spare tire that had been left in the middle of the road. Chris says there was no time for him to react. Unfortunately, Autopilot didn't either. He didn't even know what he'd hit until he reviewed the footage later. Chris adds that it would be nice to have Waze integrated into his Tesla so he could report stuff like this. That way, he might have seen someone else's report and been able to expect an object in the road. Hint hint, Tesla. Chris sent another video from when he was making the same trip but during a summer vacation. He decided to take a different route home this time to avoid any spare tires. Autopilot was engaged as he was following a semi-truck. As the truck changed lanes, it blew a tire. While most of the large chunks ended up in the other lane, a few small pieces hit the Tesla. There wasn't much Autopilot or Chris could have done to dodge the debris. Chris stopped at the next supercharger to look for any damage. Luckily, there wasn't any. Chris sends along a tip to watch out for tires when southbound from Michigan. Jeremy was driving his Model 3 in Merced, California when a crash happened in front of him. Jeremy started to steer, but the Tesla's collision avoidance system determined he was going to hit a car entering the turning lane. It took control and steered slightly while applying the brakes. Jeremy stayed at the scene of the accident and showed his footage to the police when they arrived. An officer said, "Thank God, this is going to make my life so much easier." Jake was driving his Model Y on the highway in Las Vegas, Nevada. He said he's using full self-driving beta version 10.69.2, but FSD Beta isn't available on highways yet, so we're guessing he meant to say he was using Navigate on autopilot. Anyway, as he was approaching an exit on the right, an SUV on his left crossed multiple lanes to take the exit, nearly clipping the front of Jake's Tesla. The Tesla's software, together with Jake, started braking and swerving right simultaneously to avoid the car. Jake credits the software with keeping him from losing control. In the end, Jake was able to avoid a collision and resume his drive home. Phew, that was a close one. Murad was driving his Model 3 home from work in Lubbock, Texas, when a Toyota on his left started to merge right without signaling or checking for traffic. While braking, Murad turned the steering wheel to the right. The Toyota pushed him all the way to the right lane. Murad said he could feel the Tesla keeping him a safe distance from the other car. He described it like the feeling of pushing together two magnets that are repelling one another. This video was taken the day Leo took delivery of his brand new Model 3. He and his family were on their way to the Toronto Blue Jays game to celebrate the delivery. Autopilot was engaged when Leo suddenly felt the car jerking the wheel to the right. It had reacted to a distracted driver invading their lane. We're guessing Leo is very satisfied with his ownership so far, as it already saved him from a collision. This emitter was driving his Model Y and using the full self-driving beta. Just as the Tesla was about to turn, an SUV cut across the corner. This emitter said he went for the brake, but the Tesla beat him to it. Yannick was on a two-lane highway with autopilot engaged when a large truck merged into the left lane right where Yannick was driving. Autopilot reacted swiftly and saved the day. Travis and Tony were heading out on an 18-hour road trip. They just started when Autopilot ran over a tumbleweed. Moments later, Travis got a notification that he'd been accepted into the FSD Beta. He has no idea if the events were related or not, but thanks to FSD, the rest of the trip was a smooth ride. Charles was driving his Model Y in Long Beach, California, and FSD Beta 10.69.2 was engaged as he approached an intersection where he had a green light. An oncoming car ran their red light and hit another car, nearly pushing it into Charles' Tesla, but FSD braked hard and the bump was avoided. The occupants of the other cars were unharmed, and Charles stayed and gave a statement to the police. He shared this video with them, the driver who'd been hit, and of course, with Wham Bam. Greg was driving along I-401 with autopilot engaged when he noticed the white truck passing him was throwing metal sparks and debris all over the highway. The front left wheel was dangerously tilted. Before Greg had a chance to pull forward and signal the driver, the wheel flew off. Autopilot reacted immediately, alerting Greg to the danger. Together with his own driving, Autopilot avoided the debris. Greg is very glad the wheel didn't bounce into oncoming traffic, instead safely leaving the road along with the truck. He's also thankful he packed a second pair of pants that day. Mark and his wife Vicky were driving south on US Route 101 through Lincoln City, Oregon on a road trip. Autopilot was engaged when a deer ran across the road right in front of them. Mark says that Autopilot saved their Tesla and the deer by braking just in time. Joel had just passed a truck and was signaling to merge into the middle lane. He checked his blind spot and saw that it was free. When he looked forward again, he noticed some road debris in front of him. Joel quickly tried to maneuver around it so it wouldn't cause any damage. As he did so, a speeding BMW flew past him. Autopilot took over and steered to the left to prevent a collision with the BMW. Autopilot also gave a warning sound as it swerved away from the speeding car. Pavlo was driving to work early one morning on I-95 southbound with autopilot engaged. Suddenly, he heard a front collision warning alarm and the car swiftly applied the brakes. The car on his right noticed the accident up ahead a little too late and caused another collision in the right lane. A total of 8 cars were involved in the accident that morning. Pavlo stopped and checked on everybody and shared the video with the people involved. Arthur was driving home with his parents when they noticed a car going the wrong direction down the highway in the emergency lane. Autopilot blared a loud warning to alert them. On that note, don't forget to subscribe and buy a Tesla.